Managers have to deal with many different activities in business, including planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. They must know how to use the resources that are available to them, such as human, financial, and physical. Today we're going to focus on two aspects of that planning aspect of business: policy and crisis management. Planning happens in environmental context, so managers must first understand the environment before they can create effective mission plans, goals, and plans for those goals. There are different levels of plans and goals: strategic, tactical, and organizational. Strategic happens at the top level, and tactical occurs with middle management, and organizational occurs with lower management. President Trump creates strategic goals and plans for America as he is the president or top manager of the United States. And as that top manager, Trump should also have some standing plans set in place. Standing plans are developed for activities that recur regularly over a period of time. Standing plans can enhance efficiency as the manager begins to make decision-making for recurring events much more efficient and routine. There are three types of standing plans: policy, SOPs, which stands for Standard Operating Procedures, and rules and regulation.
Policy is the most general form of a standing plan that specifies an organization's general response to a designated problem or situation. Since standing plans are reoccurring, managers can learn from previous experiences and can add or modify to the policy in place to cover a broader scope in order to be the most prepared for any event. Standing plans are under the operational planning in our textbook, which tends to be created by lower levels of management, but also can be created by any level of management. Some examples we see in our textbook are McDonald's and Starbucks. McDonald's will not grant a franchise to an individual who owns another fast food restaurant. So if a person requests to own a McDonald's franchise, McDonald's response will be to do the proper background checks to see if the individual owns another fast food franchise. If they pass these background checks, then McDonald's will grant the individual a franchise if they feel fit. Starbucks will not sell franchises to individuals at all. They retain ownership of all Starbucks stores, so if a person requests to own a Starbucks franchise, they will be denied that request no matter the person. A real-life example that us students at UGA go through every day is our academic honesty policy. This is a general response for what to do if someone is caught committing academic dishonesty. This can be anything from cheating, plagiarism, theft, lying, tampering, or other forms of academic dishonesty. Since students being caught going against the Student Honor Code is a recurring event at universities, UGA put in place a policy that states the general response of what professor and advisors should do when they catch a student breaking the rules. It includes what constitutes an honesty violation, resolved alleged allegations of honesty violations, consequences for honesty violations, and more, so that those in charge do not have to go based off of their own personal judgment, but rather the judgment of the university. Policy is a general response for a recurring activity or event, such as a person asking to own a franchise for a company, or Mexicans crossing illegally the border into America. This is a problem that our country is going through today. President Trump just passed 100% immigration policy. He created this policy to specify the broader control of what a person should do when they try to cross the border illegally. This policy has yet to work, and we will soon see the effects if they can enforce said policy.
Today, a massive fear among migrants, including thousands locked away at detention centers along the U.S.-Mexico border. Concerns over the new zero-tolerance directive playing out in real life. For years, migrants from Central America have made their way to the U.S. to plea for refuge from gang violence in their homeland. In 2014, a surge of families like this one who saw loved ones gunned down. And then last month, a migrant caravan in Mexico with mothers like Maritza, who says she escaped after her father was tortured and decapitated.
Hello, my name is Carolina Hernandez, and today we're going to briefly discuss policies and the recent zero-tolerance policy at the border. A policy, it's the most general form of a standing plan that specifies the organization's general response to a specific situation. Today, we're going to focus on the zero-tolerance policy at the border, where illegal immigrants will not be allowed to enter the country without proper documentation, and their children will be detained until the parents have their status resolved. There are some issues that arise with this policy, such as insufficient resources to detain and hold people, for example, not enough beds in detention centers, as well as strict legal limits on how long migrant children could be detained. And of course, the political and social backslash from separating children from their parents. This policy never approached 100%, and the Department of Homeland Security only referred to 60%, which is actually double the previous amount, and it completely overwhelmed the entire system in place. So we can conclude that we can have secure borders and process asylum cases humanely while protecting children. The Department of Homeland Security has used alternatives in the past to detention that have demonstrated positive results and have been more cost-effective. Thank you.
The first pictures now coming in from Puerto Rico after taking a direct hit. Hurricane Maria slamming into the island, and as you heard, one official saying the island is destroyed. Maria is the first Category 4 to hit there in nearly a century. 150-mile-an-hour winds ripping buildings apart, knocking out power everywhere. All of the electricity is out tonight. People ordered to stay inside until at least tomorrow amid fears of more massive flooding to come. And the satellite image tonight showing Maria's massive size, dwarfing the island. No part of it was spared.
My name is William Bowen, and I'm discussing crisis management and contingency planning in relation to the federal government's response to Puerto Rico following Hurricanes Irma and Maria. Crisis management is the set of procedures the organization uses in the event of a disaster or other unexpected calamity. Post-Hurricanes Irma and Maria, the lack of a contingency plan proved extremely detrimental to the people of Puerto Rico. One would think that the federal government would have learned post-Hurricane Katrina the importance of contingency planning, as one of FEMA's biggest critiques after Katrina was the organizational weakness when coping with crisis management. Again, a contingency plan would have been a perfect solution. Contingency planning is the determination of alternative courses of action to be taken if an intended plan is unexpectedly disrupted or is rendered inappropriate. After Hurricane Katrina in 2005, FEMA's organizational weaknesses and lack of a contingency plan resulted in a lack of natural resources and critical resources like electricity, which proved fatal for some citizens. Contingency planning is extremely important, especially in today's society, because it is safe to say that most things don't go as planned. There are many factors that are always being added that affect the outcomes of situations like natural disasters. For example, housing might be cheaper in places that floods and hurricanes are prone to happen, so there might be a constant increasing number of people moving to that area just because it's affordable. Contingency planning needs extensive planning so that the actions taken are fit to help and rescue as many people as possible with the resources available. Finally, creating a strategic goal and a strategic plan, like a contingency plan, are both part of the planning process, as planning involves setting objectives and determining a course of action for achieving those objectives, like saving lives following a natural disaster or restoring power and clean water to a village.
Hello class, and hello Professor Bomorski. My name is Daniel Molinix, and today I'll be discussing contingency planning and the importance of contingency planning, and I'll also be discussing other possible alternatives that could have been used in Hurricane Maria. The definition of contingency planning is the determination of alternative courses of action to be taken if the intended plan or the original plan is disrupted or rendered inappropriate. In order for contingency planning to be effective, there must be multiple alternatives in case the first scenario does not work due to unforeseen or foreseen circumstances. Contingency planning is extremely important, especially in today's society, because there's constant changing factors that evolve how humans live and what we do day to day. And one of those factors is the amount of people that you're around and the population density that you're in, especially in your city. For example, cities that get hit by hurricanes, they're most likely more densely populated because housing there is a lot cheaper. and sometimes that's the only type of housing that people can afford. Now I'd like to move into other possible contingency plans for Maria. One of the main ones was securing access to temporary housing for the elderly and people who basically are not young and fit and just need help. And another possible contingency planning was getting through all these communication barriers when there's a natural disaster, because there's no telephone lines and there's no service anywhere, and it's hard to communicate with other rescue teams and stuff like that. So those are the two main contingency plans that I would have implemented into Hurricane Maria.
Policies are a type of standing plan that are created to address recurring issues in an organization. With Trump's zero tolerance policy, there have been an overwhelming amount of immigrants that have been detained at the border, which detention centers are not fully equipped to handle. The immense influx of people in the detention centers showed the Trump administration that the zero tolerance policy is not the most efficient way to stop people from illegally crossing the border into America. Also, crisis management is an important part of managing America, as a crisis occurs all the time. But the way that we plan and prepare for said crisis is how we manage the effects of the crisis that occurred. Managers use contingency plans in order to address and manage crises in America. With the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, there was no contingency plan set in place, so President Trump was not adequately ready or prepared to manage the crisis. If President Trump had put a contingency plan into place, he would have minimized the backlash from the crisis.